Deposition of Maria Altmann beginning at 9:45 a.m. on May 29, 2002 in the matter of Altmann versus the Republic of Austria et al., case number 0008913 FMC, filed in the U.S. District Court, Central District of California. This deposition is being taken at 2049 Century Park East in Los Angeles, California. My name is Dale Peterson, a videotape operator and public notary retained by Supervision Video Services located in Los Angeles, California. Would counsel present please identify yourself and state you represent, starting with plaintiff's counsel?
Yes, my name is Randall Schoenberg, S-C-H-O-E-N-B-E-R-G, and I represent the plaintiff, Maria Altmann.
I'm Scott Cooper. I am counsel of record for the Republic of Austria and the Austrian National Gallery.
Jonathan Rich. I am a colleague of Scott Cooper's and represent the Republic of Austria and the Austrian National Gallery.
My name is Dr. Toller. I'm engaged in the Austrian Office of State Attorneys representing the Republic of Austria.
Also present this morning is Catherine Paterno, a summer associate with our law firm, Proskauer Rose, who's attending the deposition as an observer.
And will the court reporter please swear in the witness?
Please raise your hand, ma'am. Do you solemnly swear the testimony shall give in this cause and pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, good morning, Mrs. Altmann.
Good morning, Mr. Schoenberg.
Could you please state your full name for the record?
Maria Altmann, Maria Victoria Altmann.
And how do you spell Altmann?
A-L-T-M-A-N-N.
Okay. Let's first, for the record, mark Exhibit 1, which will be the third amended notice of deposition of plaintiff Maria V. Altmann to preserve testimony pending appeal under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 27B. And I'll note for the record that this deposition to preserve testimony is being taken at our request with the stipulation of the defendants, and the written stipulation dated August 3rd, 2001 is attached to this third amended notice that we've marked as Exhibit 1. We're starting earlier than scheduled, which is probably unheard of in the history of law. But we're here this morning, and we don't have any other stipulations at this time.
That's correct.
Okay. Mrs. Altmann, where were you born?
I was born in Vienna, February 18, 1916.
And what was your name when you were born?
I was still born with the name of Marie Bloch. It was a couple years later that my parents combined the maiden name of my mother with my father's name.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. How do you spell Bloch?
B-L-O-C-H.
Okay, and who was your father?
Gustav, Dr. Gustav Bloch.
And who was your mother?
Teresa Teddy for short, Bauer.
Okay. And you mentioned just now that the name was changed from Marie Bloch to Marie Bloch-Bauer. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, I was not aware then. I must have been about 2 years old. But
Okay.
yes.
Is she speaking loud enough for the?
She should.
Oh, you would want me to talk louder? I can.
You're fine for me.
Okay.
I can control the volume.
Okay, that's fine then. So your name was changed to Bloch-Bauer, and why was that?
Because male siblings of my mother and Aunt Adela had died in very young years, and to preserve the name, they combined the name of Bloch with Bauer.
I see. Now you just mentioned Adela Bloch-Bauer. Who was Adela Bloch-Bauer?
Adela was the sister of my mother, married to the brother of my father. She was a double aunt.
Okay, and who was the brother of your father?
Ferdinand Bloch,
Okay.
later Bloch-Bauer.
So Gustav and Ferdinand Bloch married
Her
Teresa.
brothers marrying two sisters.
Okay. You have to wait till I finish the question.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
then answer. So Gustav and Ferdinand Bloch married Teresa and Adela Bauer,
Yeah,
and the two families took the name Bloch-Bauer.
correct.
Okay. Now, who was the father of your mother?
His name was Moritz Bauer.
Okay. And what was his profession?
He was in the banking business and was director of the Vienna Bankverein.
Okay.
I never knew him. He died long before I was born.
Okay. Now, what profession was your father, Gustav Bloch-Bauer?
He was a lawyer.
And how about his brother, Ferdinand Bloch-Bauer?
Ferdinand was president of a sugar company in Vienna.
Okay. Do you know the name of the sugar company?
It's called Österreichische Zuckerfabrik, Austrian Sugar Factory.
Okay, I think that's a good translation. Now, were you an only child?
No, I was the youngest child. I'm the only one alive among my siblings, but I had 3 brothers and 1 sister.
Okay. And when were your brothers and sisters born?
My oldest brother was 1901, then the next 3, 5, and 7, and then 8 years nothing, and then me.
Okay. And you said you were born in 1916.
Correct.
Okay. What were the names of your siblings?
Charles, Karl, Robert, Poldi, Louise.
Poldi, P-O-L-D-I.
P-O-L-D, it's actually Leopold.
And the last one was,
Pardon me?
what was the last one?
Louisa.
Louise, my sister.
And that's in order of oldest
In
to
order
youngest?
of birth, I gave it to you.
Okay. Now, we prepared a little bit of a family tree that may be difficult to read, but I just want to mark that as Exhibit 2. I think I faxed you a version of this, Jonathan, at one point. Let's mark as Exhibit 2.
He knows more about my ancestors than I do.
Okay. Well, is this Exhibit 2 a family tree that you helped me prepare?
I had to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. But yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, where was your father born?
My father was born in Czechoslovakia in a place called Jungbunzlau.
Counsel, I don't want to interrupt. Is that the only question you're going to ask the witness about the foundation for this document? I'd note that it wouldn't be sufficient for its admissibility, and while I recognize that in this proceeding you're not able to move for admission, I wouldn't want the document to simply go by without having some discussion of it if you intend to have it admitted based on the witness's testimony.
That's fine. I don't intend to have it admitted based on her testimony, but
Very good.
I really prepared it more as a guide
Fair enough.
for everybody involved, because the relationships sometimes get confusing, and the dates. And I can tell you where the information was gleaned.
If you use it
At that
to
point.
refresh the witness's recollection, obviously we'll want to have an opportunity to voir dire the witness with respect to the information it contains, but that's fine. Let's go ahead and proceed.
I don't think there's going to be any dispute about any of the information on this
Very good.
chart. So the question was, where was your father born? And you said in Jungbunzlau, which is J-U-N-G.
Oh, you want me to spell it?
B-U-N-Z-L-A-U. And that is a town that's now called Mlada Boleslav.
You know more than I do.
Okay. In Bohemia, right?
In Bohemia, yeah.
Okay. And do you know, was Ferdinand born there also?
I suppose so.
Okay. Now, were you an Austrian citizen at some point?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Until 1945, when I became an American citizen.
Okay. Were you an Austrian citizen after 1938 when the Nazis took over Austria?
Calls for a legal conclusion.
Okay.
I guess I was.
Yeah.
I had an Austrian passport at the time.
Okay. Now, do you know, was your father an Austrian citizen?
Yes,
And when did he become an Austrian citizen?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
He was 54 when I was born, so I suppose it must have happened before.
Was Ferdinand Bloch-Bauer an Austrian or a Czech citizen?
No, he was a Czech citizen.
And how is it possible that your father could be an Austrian citizen and your uncle, his brother, be a Czech citizen?
Well, I suppose my father became an Austrian citizen after a while, but my uncle spent a lot of time in Czechoslovakia and remained a Czech citizen.
Okay. Was August von Wassermann a cousin of your mother's?
My mother, yes.
Yeah. Who was August von Wassermann?
Well, he is the one that invented, what do you call it, the Wassermann test, you know, the blood test that is done ever since for the testing that people, before they get married, they used to have the Wassermann test.
What disease does it test for?
I think it's syphilis.
Now, are you related to Julius Bauer?
No, he was a friend of the very dear friend of the family. I only knew him as an old gentleman, and he spoke at any festivity in the family, but there's no relation.
Okay. What was his profession?
Well, he was like a writer, maybe a journalist, and at every occasion, good or bad, he gave a speech.
Okay. Are you Jewish?
Yes,
Were your parents Jewish?
yes,
What about your uncle Ferdinand? Was he Jewish?
yes.
And what about Adela Bloch-Bauer?
Adela was Jewish, but she gave up the religion when one of her favorite brothers died in very young years. She didn't believe in God anymore.
Now, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Vienna.
And
I was in Vienna up to 1938.
okay. And when you were growing up in Vienna, where were Ferdinand and Adela Bloch-Bauer?
They were great part of the year in Vienna, but the summer was entirely spent in Czechoslovakia, and I visited them there too.
And how old were you about when Adela died?
9,
That was in 1925.
yes.
Now, I take it you had an opportunity to view your uncle's art collection. Is that correct?
Yes, well, I was there, we were there practically every week for dinner or lunch, and I grew up with that art collection.
Where did Ferdinand live?
He lived in Vienna in Elisabethstraße 18. They call it a palais, but it's actually a very lovely mansion. And
The number on that was 18. Elizabeth
oh, I'm
18.
so sorry. Elisabethstraße Street, number 18.
Okay. And where is that located in Vienna?
It's located on the Schillerplatz, which is just a block away from the Ringstraße, Ring Boulevard, which is the main street there. A few minutes from the opera, and very nice location.
So you said you had a good opportunity to view Ferdinand's art collection?
Yes, of course. We were there always Christmas, Easter, and practically every Sunday for lunch.
Now, you just mentioned that you celebrated Christmas and Easter, but you said earlier that you were Jewish,
Yes,
is that correct?
but I do have to admit that with my family in Vienna it was a little different. We did celebrate Christmas and Easter, though we were Jewish, had Jewish religion at school, but we did celebrate those holidays.
And did your father go to temple on
He
the
went to temple on one day only, the Day of Atonement,
on Yom Kippur?
on Yom Kippur.
Okay. Who did he sit next to at temple?
I beg your pardon?
Who did he sit next to at
He
temple?
sat next to the brothers Rothschilds. They were friends of his, and they had given him for lifetime their Stradivarius cello, which was then picked up by the Gestapo, and my father died a few weeks after.
Now, Gustav Klimt died just a little bit after you were born, so you didn't know him, did you?
I never knew him, no.
Okay. But you saw some of his paintings in Ferdinand's house.
My uncle had made, after his wife passed away so early, he had made like a memorial room, which was her former bedroom, and in that room were all the Klimt paintings, and always all year round beautiful flowers, and so I recall that very vividly.
Scott, I'm going to have her identify the Klimt paintings. Do you need a copy of these when we do that? Do you want a copy of them?
Anything that you're going to have admitted into exhibit
Okay.
in the deposition, I'd like to have a copy of.
Give you these here.
Thank
We'll
you.
mark this.
Consecutively or just?
We'll mark this
together?
as Exhibit 3, I think. It's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Altmann, I'd like you to go through with these one by one and maybe hold them up to the camera as you identify them and tell me whether you recall these paintings being in the house of your uncle.
In the bedroom, yes. Yes. This first one is.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
Okay.
Mr. Schoenberg, just, I don't want to interrupt this. It's implicit but not explicit from the witness's testimony thus far that she was in the bedroom and saw these paintings firsthand. You might want to just clarify that because she volunteered the information. You didn't have the opportunity to ask that question.
Okay, yeah. We'll go through these paintings, but I want you to identify and tell us whether you saw these particular paintings in the house of Ferdinand
Most
Bloch-Bauer.
definitely.
Okay, but go through one by one and
Yes.
tell us whether you saw these paintings in Ferdinand's house.
Yes, well, they were, as I said, the former bedroom of my aunt was transformed into a memorial room with just nothing but the Klimt paintings in there and flowers, always beautiful flowers. Now, this first one is the gold portrait. And it is the painting that my uncle commissioned Klimt to paint of his wife, Adela. The second one, which was painted, as I understand, a few years after this one, is Adela Bloch-Bauer, number 2, and this painting is the apple tree 1. It says 1, but I didn't realize there's an apple tree 2, at least. I don't know it. But this is the third one. The fourth one is the beech wood, which is this one. I love that one. And this one is houses in Unterach, which was a lake in Austria. And this one,
Okay.
I understand my uncle donated in the year 1936 to the gallery and got a lovely thank you note for it. And this is Schloss, which means castle, Kammer on Attersee, which is a lake.
Now, this last one, was this portrait of Amalia Zuckerkandel in that memorial room?
No, it was not. As a matter of fact, I don't recall that painting, but my brother said it was in my uncle's bedroom. But I don't remember that. I don't remember having entered my uncle's bedroom, but this was it.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that the second to last one, the castle, Kammer am Attersee, was donated to the Austrian Gallery in 1936. Do you remember what painting replaced that in the memorial room? No. Was there a portrait of Kokosch by Oskar Kokoschka of your uncle Ferdinand?
Leading lacks foundation.
And me?
It was an objection to the
That's-
form of the
that's okay.
question. I said that it was a leading question and that it lacked foundation,
Oh,
which means that there's no
Yeah.
establishment in the
All
record
right.
that you have that information.
You can answer the question.
I saw the painting. It was particularly ugly, in my opinion. But I must say that I don't recall having seen it in the memorial room.
Okay.
I saw the painting, but I don't recall where it was hanging.
Okay.
Might have been there, but
Okay. Now, who let's mark actually next exhibit, exhibit 4. Exhibit 4 is bait stamp numbered pages 1 through 6. Mrs. Altmann, what is Exhibit 4?
you want me to tell you?
Yes, what is it?
It was a letter that my Aunt Adele wrote to my brother Robert when he was, I think it was about his 18th birthday. And the letter is incredible because it shows so much about her character and her incredible urge for knowledge. And that's what she tells him in the letter, that he should surround himself with extremely intelligent people that know art and are very educated. And it's a very special letter in which she tries to tell him what's important in life.
Move to strike as non-responsive.
Did Adela have a formal education?
No, in those days, girls did not go to university. So she got married when she was 17 to just get out of the house and to be able to surround herself with people that were important to her.
And who were some of the people that she surrounded herself with?
Well, she surrounded herself with people from all areas. She had people that were politicians. There were people in the music world like Mahler and Strauss, Richard Strauss. And in the medical field it was Professor Tandler.
And in where?
Medical field.
And in the art it was Klimt, and I'm sure it was Schindler too, who was the father of Alma Mahler. And she had what was called in France a salon, where she surrounded herself with people in every aspect of art and intellect.
What about her political orientation?
Lax
She
Foundation.
was, pardon?
Lax
That's
Foundation. I'm just making the
He's stating
objection that
objection.
there's no basis established in the record for what he's asking you.
Yeah.
You can answer the question. What was Adela's political
She
orientation?
was a socialist.
Okay. And what about your uncle Ferdinand?
Lax Foundation.
I think
Ambiguous.
he had no time to think of what politics. He was a very hard-working, busy man.
Was Adela close to any political figures in Austria?
Yes, she was a great friend of Karl Renner.
Okay. And what about your uncle Ferdinand? Was he close to any Austrian or Czech political figures?
Yes, he
Same
was very
objection.
friendly with Masaryk, at that time the head of Czechoslovakia, president of Czechoslovakia.
How do you know that?
I just heard it from my father. Oh, not only that. When my husband and I lived in Fall River, Massachusetts, we went to Boston and we met the son of Masaryk there. And of course he remembered me from knowing who I was. And he was very unhappy at that time, and he returned then to Prague and he committed suicide before being captured.
Mm. Who was the father, Masaryk?
He was president of Czechoslovakia.
Okay. And Karl Renner, who was Karl Renner?
Karl Renner was a very big socialist figure who became president after the war. I never met him.
How do you know that Adela was close to Karl Renner?
From the hearsay of my siblings, and I understand there was an exchange of letters that were removed from her night table while she was unconscious.
Back to Exhibit 4, on the first page, at the top there's an insignia with a deer jumping over a tree.
Yeah.
And underneath it says...
Schloss means castle, Jungfer Brzeżan, which is Odolena Voda. It was, they called it a castle. It looked somewhat like the White House. I would call it a mansion, but at that time they called it a castle. And the stag is, that was apparently his ex libris for his books.
Ex libris.
It's a mark for his books. He loved hunting, and that's why he had a stag in there.
Okay. And was this Schloss Jungfer Brzeżan in Odolena Voda, was that the property that you were talking about in Czechoslovakia?
That was a property, and that was taken over by Heydrich.
We'll get to that, but before we get to that, the property was owned by Ferdinand and Adela?
And Adela, yeah.
Okay. And you visited there?
Oh, very often, almost every summer. I was there for 2 weeks or so.
Okay. Now, at the end of the letter, on the page numbered 6, is a signature of Adela, and then there's another note below that says, that's signed Buddha,
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
B-U-D-D-H-A.
I wouldn't know. That must have been a nickname that my brother Robert gave her, but I wouldn't know what it means.
Okay. Now, when we were going through the paintings, the last one was this portrait of Amalia Zuckerkandel. Who is Amalia Zuckerkandel?
Amalia Zuckerkandel, the way I recall her, she was a dear friend of my mother, and I recall her very well. She was a very, very nice lady, but my uncle was very generous to a lot of people, so that is only hearsay that he tried to help her by buying that portrait.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what happened to Mrs. Zuckerkandel during the war?
Yes,
That's
I
foundation.
understand that she was deported and died in concentration camp.
Did you know any of her children? Personally?
Yes, I remember Minnie, I think her name was Minnie, who afterwards married, I mean, I only knew her as a married woman. Müller Hoffmann was her husband. I remember him, he was very nice.
What did he do?
Black's Foundation.
I don't even know.
Okay.
He wasn't a lawyer, I think he was in the art world.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that Ferdinand ran a sugar company. Did any of your siblings work for Ferdinand in the sugar company?
My oldest brother Charles was director of the sugar company. Actually, it was called Brucker Zuckerfabrik in Bruck, but that doesn't make any difference. And my brother Robert was personal secretary to my auntie.
What about your other brother, Poldi, or Leopold?
Poldi never worked for my auntie.
Was your uncle the only shareholder of the sugar company?
No. There was a group of people, and as a matter of fact, the in-laws of my brother Poldi were big shareholders in there, and then there were quite a few others. But as I say, I recall the names, but that's all.
Well, who was your brother Leopold married to?
He was married to Tony Antoinette Pick, P-I-C-K.
Okay. And as far
And
as
they were big shareholders in the sugar company.
and Tony Pick or Tony Bentley is her name now,
yeah,
right?
they changed it from Bloch-Bauer to Bentley. Yeah.
She's still alive, right?
Yeah, but you can't call it living. She doesn't. She's alive, but it's no life. She doesn't know who she is. So
Okay.
she's blind. It's horrible.
And when did your brother marry Tony Pick?
Oh, I think he must marry. I got married 36, something like that, I think.
Okay. So before the
No,
war?
it was before, because I got married 1937. It must have been 1934 that he got married.
Okay. What about Carl? Was he married before the war?
No, he married after the war, a singer.
Okay. And your brother Robert, was he married before the war?
Yes, he was married. As a matter of fact, the birth of his son, my husband read at that time there was still a newspaper in Dachau, and that's where he read that my father died and that Robert got a little boy.
Okay. And who's that? Who was Robert's?
George Bentley.
Okay. But I was asking, who did he marry, Robert?
He married Thea Stern.
Okay. And is she still alive?
She's still alive. She's a couple of years younger than I am.
And where does she live?
She lives in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Okay. And what about your sister Louisa? Was she married before the war?
Oh yes, Louisa was married. Louisa was married, I think, in 30. I was 11 when she married, so you can figure it out.
Around 29 or 30.
Yeah.
Okay. And who did she marry?
She married. His name was Baron Victor Gutmann.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Victor Gutmann?
Victor Gutmann, Gutmann.
And where did they live?
They lived in Vienna and a great part of the year in Yugoslavia, where my brother-in-law had a lumber industry and owned some forests there.
Okay. When did you get married?
I got married on December 9th, 1937.
And to whom were you married?
I was married to Fritz Altmann.
Where did the wedding take place?
It was one of the very last Jewish weddings in Vienna. It was in Vienna.
Was it in the main synagogue?
No, it wasn't. My husband wanted that synagogue because his father was. It was his father's temple, and that's where my husband wanted us to get married.
Which one was it?
Turnergasse, Tuiner.
Okay. Now, did Fritz have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, Fritz was just like me, the youngest among 5.
Okay.
Fritz had 3 brothers and 1 sister.
And who were his brothers and sister?
Bernard was his oldest brother. He was 20 years older than Fritz, and then Julius and Clara was his sister.
What did Bernard Altmann do?
Bernard had a very large knitting mill in Vienna, and was afterwards very successful in America, doing the same thing.
Did you receive any gifts from Ferdinand when you were married?
Yes.
What did you receive?
I received a diamond necklace and matching earrings from Aunt Adele, and the sad thing is I never even wore it once, because when the Nazis came to Vienna, they came and picked up my entire jewelry. And the necklace was, after the war, they imprisoned the man that had taken the jewelry, and he said that the diamond necklace was sent to Hermann Göring's wife.
Who was that? Who was that who said that?
The Gestapo men who came to arrest us, to arrest Fritz. They arrested him after the war and asked him about the jewelry of Bernard's wife.
What was his name, the Gestapo?
Mr.
Move
Landau.
to strike. The last answer is non-responsive.
Hmm?
If you would pause just a moment between his question and your answer, that way I won't interrupt you when I'm making an occasional objection. Thank you.
Yes, I will.
What was the name of the Gestapo officer you were just referring to?
Landau.
Max Foundation.
Landau.
Okay. Now, after your wedding at the end of 1937, you went on your honeymoon?
We went in December on the honeymoon, and we came back in January.
Okay. And where did you live?
We lived in a beautiful, totally new apartment that was in the living quarters of the factory where that my brother-in-law owned, and it was brand new and beautiful, but we lived there only 6 weeks.
Do you remember when the Nazis annexed Austria in what is known as the Anschluss?
I remember it very well.
Where were you?
It was, happened to be at my parents' house, where there was chamber music every Friday evening, and it was just when the chamber music ended that the then Chancellor of Austria, Schuschnigg was his name, he announced that the German troops are at the border and that there would be no resistance, so that there's no bloodshed.
And do you remember when the Nazis then, the German Nazis came into Vienna?
Yes, I remember it very well.
What do you remember?
That,
Calls for a narrative response.
Hmm?
You don't have to worry. He's saying objections, so you can answer the question. The judge will rule on them later.
It was that it was in the evening at 6 o'clock that the Schuschnigg made the speech, and then afterwards there was a lot of jubilant people in the streets, and church bells were ringing, and it was not an era of victims, but more, they were quite jubilant, the people in the streets. I'm sure not everyone. But.
Do you know where Ferdinand was at the time of the Anschluss?
Ferdinand
Lax
must have been
Foundation.
in Czechoslovakia. He was definitely not in Vienna at the time.
Do you know what happened to Ferdinand's home after the Anschluss?
Lax Foundation.
You can answer the question. He's stating objections. The judge will rule on them later.
Well, the thing is, I never went back there anymore, but I understand that, see, I was concentrating at that time of one thing. My father died, and my husband was in concentration camp, so I never thought of anything else but how he would get out, how we would get out.
Okay. What, you mentioned earlier there was a time when the Gestapo came to you personally. When was the first time that you had interaction with the Gestapo?
It must have been, it was very early, because Bernard had given us a car for the wedding, a new car, and they came and pushed it out of the garage, which was around the middle of March already. And then a little later, I would say in the last week of March, first days of April, is when they came to question Fritz. They just called it for questioning, but they arrested him, and then he was shipped to Dachau.
Okay. You mentioned something about some jewelry of yours. When did that take place?
Oh, that
Objection.
was the first time.
Excuse me, Mrs. Altmann.
Yes, sure.
Objection as to relevancy. And if you're going to go into a series of questions of this type, perhaps now is an appropriate time to have a stipulation for at least this series of questions as to the relevancy.
That's fine. You can reserve your relevancy objections to this line of questioning.
Okay.
You had, the question was, earlier you had mentioned that a Gestapo agent, a Mr. Landau, had taken your jewelry. When did
Correct.
that occur?
I beg your pardon?
When did that occur?
That occurred in the very first time. He then lived in the factory. He took an apartment. As a matter of fact, he took over our apartment.
That's
And
Mr. Landau?
Mr. Landau.
Was he Austrian or German?
No, he was Austrian. The people that had taken over the factory were two German gentlemen.
Okay. And this was the factory that belonged to your brother-in-law?
My brother-in-law, Bernard.
Okay. And what did Mr. Landau say to you when he came to ask you about your jewelry?
He just
Objection,
said,
hearsay.
give me the jewelry. And then he made me take off the engagement ring. And I was so terrified that they might arrest my husband that I had jewelry at the house, but then I had the main jewelry, which was given to me for the wedding a couple months before at the jeweler, and they wouldn't have known about it. But I told them that I have more jewelry, and so the jeweler sent it over.
Okay. Now, at that time, Fritz wasn't yet arrested. Is that correct?
When they picked up the jewelry, no. That's why I wanted to be sure that they got everything, so that he wouldn't be arrested.
Okay.
But they arrested him a few days after.
Okay. And where was Fritz?
He was first
sent?
at the Landesgericht in Vienna, and there was Sauerländer afterwards, and from there he was on the very first transport to Dachau.
I'm sorry, what was the second one?
Oh, I don't think you need that. It was a little
I have to
prison.
write it.
Oh, I'm sorry. ROSSEUERLENDER.
First at Landens, and then in Vienna, and then Ross, and then where?
Oh,
And
and
then he
then he
got-
was shipped to Dachau, DACHAU.
Okay. And do you know why Fritz was arrested?
Lax Foundation calls for speculation.
He was arrested because not only out of religious reasons, but mostly because the two Germans that took over the factory wanted to be sure that my brother-in-law has foreign accounts not paid to him but to them. And so they went to Paris, to the two German gentlemen, and told them to, if he wanted to see Fritz again, he should sign over the factory, which he did. And they kept the promise and sent an officer to Dachau to bring Fritz home. And came back in July.
Okay. And did you have to do anything to secure the release of your husband from Dachau?
No, I did go with that one German gentleman to Berlin, but he did the talking. I didn't do anything.
Okay. After Fritz was released, where did you live?
We lived in a small place assigned to us in the house, and we stayed there until we made 2 attempts to escape that failed, and the third one worked, and we landed in England.
Okay. You said your father passed away that summer in 1938.
My father died in July of 1938.
Okay. And you were still in Vienna then?
Oh yes.
When did you leave Vienna?
I left Vienna on October 21st, 1938.
Okay. Now, among your family, who else escaped from Austria at that time? Did your mother? Well, let's go through. Did your mother?
No, my
leave?
mother followed a little later. We escaped to England, and my mother followed a few weeks afterwards. My brother Robert was able to leave, and then also the sister of Fritz. That's it.
Okay. What about Charles?
He was not in Vienna, thank goodness, because he was in Paris at the time and never returned.
Okay. And what about Poldi?
Poldi was in Vienna, and he was arrested.
And what happened to him when he was arrested?
That's an unusual story. They woke him up at midnight for interrogation, and the man that questioned him said, "Mr. Bloch-Bauer, I'm going to test your memory. What did you do on New Year's Eve in 1934? And my brother said, I remember that very well. I was skiing at the Zugspitze, Z-U-G-S-P-I-T-Z-E. It's a skiing mountain near Vienna. And at midnight, we got an SOS call from the mountains that a man had got lost there. And he said, my buddy and I went up and brought him down to the lodge. And the man answered, this is correct. And the man was me. And my name is Hitler. I'm a nephew of Adolf Hitler. I'm going to help you, but only for 3 days. And you better get out by then. And he liberated my brother, and he went to the Swiss consulate the next day and got out.
Okay. Where did your brother Leopold go when he left Austria?
He went to Vancouver, British Columbia, and
what did he do there?
He brought.
What did he do there?
He founded a very large lumber mill.
Do you know what it's called?
CANFOR, Canfor,
Okay.
Lumber Company.
And did any of your other relatives then go to Vancouver?
Well, my brother Poldi was very good about that and had all the others follow him and give them jobs.
Okay. Well, when you say all the others...
It was my brother Robert, my brother Charles, and Louise the whole time was still in Yugoslavia, where her husband was killed by the communists. And then the person that helped her very much married her, and he went with her via Israel to Canada.
But so you were the only one that didn't go to Canada.
Yeah, no, that's correct.
Right. And how about your mother? Did your mother?
My mother came in November '38 to Liverpool to join us. I think it was November, I don't know exactly. And then she went to Canada and stayed there.
Now, did any of your brothers change their names when they went to Canada?
Yes, two of my brothers changed their name to Bentley because nobody could pronounce Bloch-Bauer. And only my oldest brother, to spite my youngest brother, kept the name.
That was Charles.
To make it a little more difficult. Yeah.
That was Charles?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we come across the name of your brother Robert Bentley later, that's Robert Bloch-Bauer who became
Correct,
Robert Bentley?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you said you escaped from Vienna and ended up in Liverpool, England. When was that?
Well, it's a little complicated. We went
I
from
just asked when it was.
when it was?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. It was October 38, October 21, 38.
Okay. And how long did you stay in Liverpool?
We stayed in Liverpool until the war broke out. We would have remained in England. We loved it. But the war broke out, we would have been enemy aliens. And luckily at the time, our American visa came, and so we went to America in May 1940.
Okay. And where did you live initially in the United States?
And we were in Fall River, Massachusetts, where my oldest son was born. And then in October, 2 years later, 1942, we came to Los Angeles.
Okay. And why did you come to Los Angeles?
Fritz wanted to work for the war effort, and so he got a position as a time study engineer with General Dynamics in San Diego. And when he came there, they couldn't give him the job because he thought he was Australian and he would have been an enemy alien. And so we had to come back to we came to Los Angeles, and then we took a lawyer and he worked it out, and then Fritz worked at Lockheed for the entire war. And
Okay, could we take a break? We've been going about an hour. Can
Sure.
we take a break now, and I can set up the next set of documents?
Sure.
It's a good time.
Going off the record at 10:38 a.m.
Thank you.
Going back on the record at 10:58 a.m.
Okay.
Would you like some water?
that would be nice.
Let me just get this.
Actually,
Thank you very much.
1 minute. Will you get the water? There it is. That's what I wanted. While he's getting the water, we'll mark as the next exhibit, which I think is number 5. Document that is bait stamp marked 1346 through 1362. Mrs. Altmann, Exhibit 5 is a property declaration concerning the property of Jews in 1938. Your name appears on the first page. It lists your address as Siebenbrunnen, number 21. Is that where you were living in 1938?
Correct.
Objection.
That was where the factory of my brother-in-law was, and where there was also the living quarters in an extra house.
Lacks foundation.
Hmm?
The question about this document lacks foundation, that's all.
The question was whether it was correct that she lived there in summer of 1938.
All right.
Counsel, just so we're clear, the question was by reference to a document for which there's no foundation.
Okay,
That
so
was
you're-
the basis for my objection.
Okay, you're objecting to the document, not the question.
I'm objecting to the question which referred to a document for which there's no foundation.
Okay. If you can turn to the 4th page of this document, for which Mr. Cooper believes there's no foundation.
Just so you and I understand each other, do you believe you've established a foundation for this document on the record?
I'm not having my deposition taken. I'm just going and asking questions. You're placing objections. So you do your job and I'll do mine.
Excellent.
Okay. But the question was whether it was correct that she lived at Siebenbrunn-Gasse, and your objection was lacks foundation. Page 4 of this document,
Yes,
Exhibit
I
5. Is that your signature at the bottom?
Correct.
Okay. Is this, at least the first 4 pages of Exhibit 5, a document that you were required to fill out in the summer of 1938?
Yes.
Okay. On the 3rd page,
Yes.
do you see that?
Yes.
At the bottom, you see where it says, does it say there that your jewelry,
Yeah, my jewelry was taken by the secret police and the Gestapo, and therefore I have no way of appraising it.
okay,
Move to strike as non-responsive.
well, let me re-ask the question. What does it say at the bottom of the page?
On page 3,
Yes, you can say again what you just said.
it says my jewelry is taken by the secret police, and therefore I cannot appraise it. I just translated what I wrote there.
For the record, since I think the record is unclear, the document is a German language document. The reference was to page 1348, and Mrs. Altmann was, I believe, although I'm guessing, translating a sentence that was typed onto an otherwise form printed document, the beginning with the words mine, M-E-I-N, and ending with the word Schatzen, S-C-H-A-T-Z-E-N.
No, excuse me. Schmuck, it means jewelry. S-C-H-M-U-C-K.
He said the last word and he mispronounced it. It's Schätzen.
Oh, schätzen is appraise.
Yeah. Okay. If you can turn to page 1353.
Yes.
Now I'm just using this to see if it refreshes your recollection. Well, first, can you translate it for us?
Yes, as told us by the act of Gestapo, means secret police. In room 450, the entire Vermögen is the entire fortune,
Property.
of the Jewish woman Maria Altmann was taken on June 13, 1938 by the state. The above mentioned Jewish woman has escaped without a passport, which is incorrect. I had a passport, but I escaped with my husband, who had no passport, and is at the time in London.
Okay.
And that document was 17th of July, 1939.
Okay. Do you know if the document that the passport you left with was a German passport issued by Nazi Germany?
Yes, They gave it to me to pretend that we can leave, but they would have never let Fritz go.
Okay. Let's mark now as Exhibit 6, document numbered 1330 through 1345.
That's the same one? No.
That's a different one, which I'll give you now.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I can't even translate
Okay,
that. It's so complicated.
It's okay. I'm not going to ask you any foundational questions about this, but I just thought it should be here in order. When you and your husband Fritz left Vienna in 1938, were you able to bring any property with you?
No, nothing.
Objection. Counsel, I'm sorry. I'm just confused at this point. Is this document being offered to the witness for the purpose of asking a question of her or not? I don't know how to form an objection with respect to its total lack of foundation and substance, because I don't know whether you've placed it before her for a reason.
Without reference yet to the document, were you allowed to take any property with you, you and your husband Fritz?
Nothing. We had a raincoat and nothing else.
Okay. If you turn to the third page, 1332. Don't read it yet. Okay. Do you know were any taxes imposed on you when you left Austria?
I'm quite sure
Ambiguous.
I was.
What taxes were imposed on you?
I think they called it Reichsfluchtsteuer, which you can't possibly rent. It was an
Here. Okay. On page 3, it mentions a lawyer, Dr. Reinisch.
yes.
Who was Dr. Reinisch?
Dr. Reinisch was
Objection to any questions making reference to this document without a proper foundation for the document.
Who was Dr. Reinisch?
Dr. Reinisch was the best friend of my brother Robert and was a great friend of the family. I knew him since I can remember anything, and he was a very, very nice man in whom I had my complete trust.
And was he your lawyer in the fall of 1938?
Yes, he was.
Let's mark as Exhibit 7, I think. This next set of documents.
No, I was 2 years old then.
Okay. What I'd like you to do is go through this Exhibit 7 and identify the pages and who is portrayed in them. On the first page, which is
On the
numbered...
first page, marked March 22nd, 1918, is my father and my mother. The second page is a painting that I own of my mother as a young woman.
Is it a painting or a photograph?
No, it's a painting which was in Vancouver with my sister, and when my sister died, I inherited the painting. It's still with my son.
Let's refer to the numbers at the bottom of the page to make sure. You're talking about page 1404 now.
Correct.
Okay. Whoops.
Counsel, do I still have a running objection on relevancy with
1405.
respect to this line of questioning?
That's fine. You can reserve all relevance objections to this line. You skipped a page.
I
I
did?
think, yeah.
Oh, that's me.
1405 is you.
Yes, and oh, it's just silly. I sent that to my sister, this picture. Doesn't mean anything. And this is a picture of a very elegant dinner at the castle of my uncle in Czechoslovakia.
That's 1407.
1407 and 1409 is my engagement picture. And the next one is Aunt Adela in Czechoslovakia in Brzeżan with their German shepherd. And this one is my 1411 is my uncle with a hunted stag. He loved hunting, horrible. And the next one was, and that is the so-called castle in Czechoslovakia. It was a postcard I sent to a friend of mine in 32. Yeah, I was 16 then. And that is the house that Heydrich took over. And
You just mentioned someone, Heydrich. Can you spell that for the court reporter?
oh, Heydrich.
Okay, and who is Heydrich?
Heydrich was a right-hand man of Hitler. I don't, shall I spell it? And he was named as to head he was supposed to take over Czechoslovakia for the Germans, and he took my uncle's castle or mansion as his residence and lived there with his wife.
Okay. Let's mark as Exhibit 8.
As a matter of fact, when he left there to go to Prague, he was murdered on the way to Prague by the Czechs.
You're talking about Heydrich now.
Heydrich, yeah.
Okay. This next few pages is Exhibit 8. I'm sorry the copies didn't come out very well. If these turn out to be relevant, we'll get better copies. But just for completeness' sake,
these were paintings. That was the one which...
Okay, well, let's go page by page. That's why I showed it to you, to see if you can identify, even with these poor copies, what is on page 1, which is numbered 1415.
That is a Waldmüller painting, Waldmuellerer. He was an Austrian painter, and that was at my uncle's place. And above is what you call it, a showcase, a display case for some of the beautiful porcelain they had. And in the next ones are all paintings that he had, and of those, these were actually returned to us partly to my siblings, and the one underneath where it says Esterhazy, that was a Waldmüller painting that I got, but I actually never saw it. It was sold. And this picture, the last one here, 1417, is by an Austrian painter, EYBL, and it is a painting of, I think, an Austrian aristocrat. And this painting I have and still have, while some of the others I sold because I needed the money.
Okay. Let's mark now as Exhibit 9.
Which is 9.
I'm going to give it to you.
Oh, shall I return these?
You can put them in front of you or on the side.
Yeah.
Exhibit 9 is document numbered 1418 through 1427, and the front page says, "My Adventures and Escape from Nazi Germany." Mrs. Altmann, do you recognize Exhibit 9?
Yes, I do.
And what is Exhibit 9?
Excuse me, you're talking about this one?
Yes.
Well, it is the story of, my husband wrote and it is the story of our escape from Vienna.
Is everything in this Exhibit 9 true?
Yes, it
Compound lacks
certainly-
foundation.
I'm sorry?
It certainly is.
Has Fritz passed away?
Which passed away in 1994.
It's also hearsay.
Let's mark as Exhibit 10 a document numbered 1428 through 1439. This is the story of the escape of Fritz and Maria from Germany on 21st and 22nd of October 1938 by Bernhard Altmann.
Yeah, he arranged all that from the outside because what we tried from the inside failed.
Mrs. Altmann, do you recognize Exhibit 10 that we've just put in front of you?
Yes, I do.
And what is Exhibit 10?
It is a story of the escape of my husband and myself, written by my brother-in-law, Bernhard Altmann, who arranged the whole thing from outside because what we tried from the inside didn't work out.
And is everything in here true as far as you know?
Yes, it
Ex
certainly
foundation.
is. I read it many times.
It's compound. It's hearsay.
Let's mark as Exhibit 11, document numbered 13 through 16. Mrs. Altmann, on the last page, page 16,
Page 16, excuse me. Yes,
do you recognize any signatures on that page?
yes, I recognize the signature of my father on the left.
Where it says Gustav Bloch-Bauer?
Yes, Dr. Gustav Bloch-Bauer.
Now, how old was Adela when she died?
42, about 43 or 4.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that she gave up her religion.
Yes.
And why was that again?
Pardon me?
Why did she give up her religion?
Because she lost the faith, the belief in God when her favorite brother died so young.
On the first page it says that Adela was a citizen of Czechoslovakia. Do you know if that's correct?
I suppose so. because her husband was Czechoslovak. Yeah, it says here. Staatsangehör mean were citizen of what?
Okay. That was 11. Let's mark now Exhibit 12, which is pages 17 and 18. This is the handwritten version of Adela's last will. Mrs. Altmann, sorry. Mrs. Altmann, when did you first see a copy of your Aunt Adela's will?
In either 1998 or 99.
Okay.
I had never seen it before.
Let's mark as Exhibit 13, pages number 21 and 22, which I believe are a typescript of the will that was done shortly after the war, I think. And just for the record, there may be some discrepancies between the typescript and the actual written version.
Okay. I just, for clarity, you, I take it that you and I are clear, at least with respect to your presentation of these various documents to Mrs. Altmann, that I'm not required to make an objection as to a lack of foundation for admissibility of the documents at trial. Plainly, your purpose in showing her some of these documents, perhaps all of them, is for questioning purposes and not for establishment of a foundation for the admissibility of the documents. If we're clear on that, I'll avoid additional objection that would go to the admissibility of the document as opposed to any question you ask her.
Yeah, for the most part, that's correct. I mean, there may be some, for example, on one of the previous documents, you recognized the signature of her father that may ultimately go to foundation, but I'm assuming that we'll be able to get these admitted foundationally through other methods than Mrs. Altmann's testimony. So
that was my assumption as well. If we're clear on that, perhaps we can just have a running stipulation that by not objecting to these documents in today's deposition, that we waive no objection with respect to their admissibility or the establishment of any foundation for their admissibility.
That's certainly fine with us. We'll stipulate to that.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Altmann, Exhibit 13 is in front of you. When did you first receive a copy of Exhibit 13?
I would say in the early 99 or still at the end of 98. I don't quite recall it. My sister passed away at that time, so that was a very difficult time for me.
Okay. Let's mark Exhibit 14.
Oh, that's her death certificate?
Okay. On the second page of Exhibit 14, it looks like there's a name at the top. Can you read that name?
Yes, that is the man I mentioned before, Professor Julius Tandler, Tandler. He was part of he was a Social Democrat, part of the Stadtrat, is, yeah, a councilman.
Can you spell
Eh.
that?
Stadtrat, it's just the title.
Let the record reflect the witnesses spelling a word that appears under Professor Tondler's name on page 2
Right.
of the document that's been marked for
It's her
identification
death
purposes of
certificate,
Exhibit
yeah.
4.
Okay. And you had said that Professor Tondler was a medical doctor?
He was a professor of anatomy at the University of Vienna,
Okay.
and a very dear friend of my aunt and uncle, I suppose.
Okay. Let's mark now Exhibit 15. Oops. Which is a 3-page document, numbers 24 through 26. Mrs. Altmann, when did you first see the pages of Exhibit 15?
All of these I only saw in '99.
In 1999?
Yes, I never saw anything before. We escaped, and I had nothing to go by.
Okay. Let's might as well continue. Exhibit 16 is page numbered 29. Mrs. Altmann, do you know what Exhibit 16 is?
I'm just looking at it. Yeah, it's talking about the last will of my aunt.
Have you seen this before?
I guess so, but all these things I only saw after 1999. I never saw anything because we escaped, and I had zero knowledge of any of these.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about the house.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had for that. This one I'm not going to mark as an exhibit, but it has been produced. It's numbered, pages number 30 through 84. The first page says Inventar Maerz, which is M-A-E-R-Z, 1932.
It's the inventory.
Yeah, well, there's no question yet. Let me ask the question. Yeah. I'll put it in front of you, and I just want you, I put it in front of you,
Yeah.
to identify what this is, briefly.
It just says inventory March 1932, and it gives the inventory as about the house of my uncle with everything in it, and the art, also the furniture, piano, carpets,
Okay.
and objects of art.
From whom did you get this inventory?
Counsel, do you have a copy of this document for me?
I didn't make an extra because it's thick, but you
From
have a copy.
whom I
of it.
got it? Actually, my brother Robert did all that, but
Do you know when you obtained a copy of this inventory?
don't think so.
Okay, that's fine. That's all the only question I had about it.
Did I? Maybe my memory fails me finally, but I don't recall
That's
it.
okay. Scott, I can lay it out here in case you want to ask a question about it.
Thanks. I'll just make a copy at a break if that's possible for convenience.
It's in terrible detail, all the contents of the palais.
I have prepared, and we'll call it Exhibit 17, pages numbered 85 through 91, which are, for the most part, an excerpt of that insurance inventory. Sorry, did we make that 17? Yes.
For the record, you've characterized this document as to which there exists no foundation. And when you say that this is, I see, the fact that these pages are numbered consecutively after the identification numbers of the other pages does not mean that these were pages in the original document that appeared consecutively after the last page of the document. I take it that this somehow was produced as a separate excerpt?
I think so, and it may even have extra comments on it. I want her to try to identify some of the handwriting on these pages inside here. I think it'll be helpful for everyone if we have to.
The handwriting is entirely the one of my brother Robert.
You're looking now at which page?
Oh, I was just looking at page 87, but I can start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Robert was what they called the personal secretary of my uncle, so that is how he knows more than any of us about every detail. And this is, he named all the entire contents of the Palais in Elisabethstraße, and all the paintings, he named them one by one, and then all the objects of art in the different rooms.
We have to strike as non-responsive.
Okay. On the page that's numbered 86.
86,
Yeah.
yes. 86, yes. Yeah?
Unfortunately, there's some writing at the very top that didn't come out very well, but I'm not sure if you can recognize that as anybody's handwriting. Can you?
You mean this?
Yeah.
I couldn't possibly.
Okay, that's fine. The handwritten notations on the rest of page 86, not including the
Yeah, it's
title at
all
the top.
from Robert.
Okay. What about on page 87?
It's only Robert. I recognize his handwriting very well, but he was the one that did all that.
Okay.
He was also in Vienna part of the time.
On page 88, whose handwriting is that?
Robert.
Okay. On page 89, there's similar handwriting and then other writing on the left side. Is that all from the same person? Do you know?
No, but I wouldn't know who did it. It says Roberts with a question mark, Poldi with a question mark, Louise. I don't know who wrote that.
Okay. So the writing, the printed writing on the left side, you do not recognize on page 89. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, but the handwritten notations.
The handwritten notations is all my brother Robert.
Okay.
But there's in little printed, you mean the small ones where it says Louise, Robert?
Right, the one on the left hand
That I don't
column.
know who wrote that.
Okay, that's, I just.
It might have been him, but I don't know.
Okay, what about on page 90?
That's all Robert.
Again, the column on the left side, is that?
Unless he tried to print, but I don't, it looks like a different handwriting.
So
The one that says Pauline Trust, for instance, it seems like a little different handwriting, but he might have tried to write neatly, so I wouldn't know.
Okay.
Counsel, just for the record, I'm perfectly happy to have the witness testify as to her belief as to any handwriting that she recognizes, so that we're not silent on the subject. We obviously don't accept that she has expertise in the field of handwriting or the forensic
It's very
ability to
interesting.
identify.
I just see that. I haven't seen it before. It says next to all the paintings of my uncle, next to on the top where it says Waldmüller, Trauben, do you see that? It says Göring. Then it says Versöhnung, which means well, it's all the name of a portrait. It says Pinakothek, which is the museum in Munich. Then it says Munich. Then under Esterhazy it says Hitler. Child with dog, it says Göring.
Yes.
So that is where it was first, before it was returned.
To complete what I was saying, the testimony, I take it, is for the purpose of identifying any of the handwriting that Mrs. Altmann
I
recognizes.
suppose so, yeah.
Rather than for any forensic
Yeah,
purposes.
all right.
Let's look at the last page, 91.
Is that correct, counsel, just so I'll know?
The testimony is what it is.
Fine.
So,
91?
yes. Sorry, the last page.
Yeah,
there.
I got it. Now that on top it says Nix, it was a painting that he gave Renisch.
There's no question pending, Mrs. Altmann.
Yeah, no, that's all. Nothing.
On the writing, the handwriting in the middle, again, you recognize that as your brother Robert's?
Lacks foundation.
In the middle, there's no handwriting.
Well, in the lower part.
Same
Lower
with the-
part is my brother Robert, yeah. Unbelievable.
We've done these already. Okay, this is the only other one I didn't make a copy of, but again, I did a copy this time of the first 3 pages. So let's mark as exhibit 18, pages numbered 188 through 190.
Oh my.
And then for reference purposes, the entire document, which is numbered 188 through 294. Mrs. Altmann, do you recognize what we marked as Exhibit 18?
Yes,
Okay, what is that?
you're talking about this.
Yes.
Well, that was my uncle had a very, very famous collection of porcelain. And as a matter of fact, it traveled to different museums throughout Europe. And then it was confiscated. And at first, we were told that Hitler wanted to buy it, and then it proved to be too expensive, so it was auctioned off in a public auction in Vienna.
Okay. And
Moves to strike as non-responsive.
is, yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Pay attention
okay.
to me. He states his objections for the record, and the judge will rule on them eventually. Mr. Cooper, could you put the entire document closer to Mrs. Altmann?
Yeah.
Okay, you can just what we showed you as Exhibit 18 is just the first 3 pages, but
Yeah, well, I
what is
have
this book?
that original that was sent to me at home, and it was unbelievably beautiful. That's all I can say.
Okay. How did you receive a copy of this catalog?
Assumes facts, not in evidence, lacks foundation.
I received it through. Oh, just a minute. This fell down. I don't know where you want me to put it. I don't want to do a wrong thing.
Where did you receive a copy of this catalog?
Same objections.
how did
It's
you-
also leading.
How did you receive a copy of this catalog?
If I recall, Mrs. Sturm, the antique dealer, could send it to me.
Okay. And who is Mrs. Sturm?
Mrs. Sturm has a very beautiful antique shop in Vienna, and she was very anxious to get as much of these things as she can. And we sold her some things because we needed the money.
What was the name of her store?
Very difficult. Bednarczyk, I think, Bednarczyk. It's a Polish name. You don't have to worry about it.
But you said you received it from Mrs. Sturm?
Ambiguous.
I
The reference to it is
I think so.
this document, the original of this document.
You can pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Is Mrs. Sturm the owner of the Bednarczyk gallery?
Yes, Bednarczyk was her father, and so that store is still called Bednarczyk. As a matter of fact, when the few paintings that we were able to get out, I sold to the father, to Mr. Bednarczyk, because I needed the money.
Now, on the second page you can, yeah, that's fine, numbered 189. That's fine, no, turn back to the previous page.
89.
At the top, there are two stamps, addresses for your brother, Robert Bentley.
Yes.
Okay.
There are two addresses. The first one was his.
You're
the one on the
anticipating my
right is
question.
with his
Yeah.
first wife. The one on the left is with his, where he moved with his second wife.
Okay. And do you know when he moved to the second address?
And I couldn't tell you the year.
Okay. Who was his second wife?
Who it was?
Yeah.
Her name was. She was English, and her first name was Hilda.
Let's mark as Exhibit 19, document numbered 303. Which is a handwritten note from Dr. Erich Führer, F-U-E-H-R-E-R. When it has two dots over the U, you can add an E in English. Okay? Like my name, Schoenberg, used to be O with two dots, and now it's O-E-N. Okay? This is dated, appears to be dated July 10th, 1942. Mrs. Altmann, first of all, do you know how you came to receive a copy of this document we've marked as Exhibit 19?
All of this I had not seen before 1999.
And how did you get it?
I think through Janine.
I'm sorry? I think.
I guess so. I don't know when I got it. I certainly didn't see it before.
Okay. She said Czernin, C-Z-E-R-N-I-N.
Dr. Führer was...
Okay, well, there's no question yet,
yeah.
so let me ask you that question. Who was Dr. Erich Führer?
Dr. Erich Führer was a Nazi lawyer assigned to take over my uncle's fortune and art.
Okay. And did you ever meet Dr. Führer?
No.
Move to strike the last answer to the prior question with respect to the identity of Dr. Führer as lacking foundation.
Let's mark now as Exhibit 20, a will of Ferdinand Bloch-Bauer dated October 8th, 1942. Mrs. Altmann, did you receive a copy of this from your sister?
No.
I didn't hear the witness's answer.
No.
No.
Did you receive it after your sister passed away?
Yes.
And when did she die?
She died in April 98.
And before April 1998, had you ever seen this document?
No, but I saw it afterwards.
Did did your sister have children?
Yes, my sister had a daughter and a son.
What's the name of her daughter?
Nelly Auersperg, Auersperg.
Okay. And what's the name of her son?
The son is Edward, Eddie
No,
Auersperg, Auersperg.
that's Nellie's
Doctor.
son?
Pardon me?
That's Nellie's son.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that's Nelly's son. Forgive me. The two children of my sister were Nelly Auersperg and Francis Gutmann, Gutmann.
And where does Francis Gutmann live?
Francis lives in Montreal, Canada.
Okay. And where does Nellie Auersperg live?
She lives in Vancouver, British Columbia.
And who is Nellie Auersperg married to?
She is married to Johannes. Well, if it's easier for you, it's Hansa Auersperg, Hansa.
Is the Auersperg family a well-known family in Austria?
It's a very well-known family.
How are they well-known?
Well, as a matter of fact, he tells me they were there before the Habsburgs, so they are since 16th century.
Now, did Nellie or her husband give you a copy of this will that we marked?
Yes, we went through all these things after my sister passed away, but before I didn't see it.
Let's mark as Exhibit 21 a letter dated 30th of August 1945 to Dr. You ready for this? Erwin Lovacek, Lowatzschek, in Zurich, from Ferdinand Bloch-Bauer. Is Exhibit 21 another letter that you received from your niece Nellie or her husband Hansa after your sister died?
Correct.
You'll see in the middle there's a reference to something I think you referred to before. Brucker Zuckerfabrik, Brucker Zuckerfabrik. What was the Brucker Zuckerfabrik?
It was a sugar refinery where my uncle was president, and he mentions in this document the partners in the industry.
And who are those? Can you read that for us?
Well,
Objection. Document speaks for itself.
Well, I'm gonna ask
I
her if
just
she knows
know
the people, so.
the top one, who was the father-in-law of my brother Baldi.
You're referring to Otto Pick?
Yes.
Was
I knew the other names, but I knew the names very well. I might have met even some of them, but that's it.
Okay, so Otto Pick was your brother Poldy's father-in-law,
Correct.
and he was one of the other shareholders in
Yes.
the sugar company. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's mark as Exhibit 2, then a letter from, 22. Letter from Ferdinand Bloch-Bauer to Dr. Rinesh, who we've mentioned before. This one is dated 5th of September. The date is cut off, but I think it's 1945. If it matters, ultimately we'll get a better copy of it if we have one.
It was just a couple months before he died, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it couldn't have been after 1945 if it was from Ferdinand. Is this another, Exhibit 22, is that another document that you received from your niece Nellie or her husband Hansa Auersberg after your sister died?
Yes, I
Lady.
think so.
Let's do exhibit. Let's mark as Exhibit 23, page number 314.
Yeah, well, these were
Okay.
all.
The question is this also a document you received from your niece Louisa or her husband after your sister Louisa died in 1998?
Lady and Lax Foundation.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Okay.
I don't know exactly if I got that from Louise or with the rest of the things that I got
Okay.
afterwards.
Let's mark now as Exhibit 24, the last will of Ferdinand Bloch-Bauer, dated 22nd October 1945. And
Yeah,
This-
I know that.
this is numbered 316 through 318. 318 is a transcript. Do you recall when you first saw this?
Yes,
Sims
in
Facts Not in Evidence,
1999.
Lax Foundation.
I'm sorry, can you say the answer again?
In 1999.
Exhibit 25 is marked page 320.
Now that's a death certificate.
Is this also something you received from your niece Nellie or her husband Hansa after your sister died?
Lady and Lax Foundation.
I'm not quite sure if they showed me that or if I got it with the other documents in 1999.
Okay. Same question for the next exhibit, which will be Exhibit 26. I assume the
And
same
it's the same thing.
objection.
It's a death
You
certificate.
assumed correctly, some objection.
Do you remember when you learned that your Uncle Ferdinand had died?
Well, I heard it from Vancouver, of course. I didn't hear anything directly.
After you left Vienna in 1938, were you in contact with your uncle?
Yes, yes, as a matter of fact.
How did you communicate with your uncle after 1938?
It was only for a very brief period while we were in Liverpool. Once we came to America, there was no communication anymore because it was war. But while we were in Liverpool, we did communicate with him.
You wrote letters to him?
Well, yes, because my husband was singing in a part in an opera that was the favorite opera of my Uncle Ferdinand, Trovatore. And so
you have to spell that for
no,
the
you
listener
don't have
also.
to say. You don't have to.
She has to. Il Trovatore.
You understand.
Well, I don't know.
And my uncle was very happy about that because he said it was his favorite opera. But after that, once we left Liverpool and came to America, there was no communication with him anymore.
And after the war ended in Europe in 1945, between then and his death later that year, were you able to establish any communication with him?
No.
Okay. Where was Ferdinand living?
In Zurich, Switzerland.
Let's mark Exhibit 27. Is that right? Page number 345.
I think we had a similar one before with the... No,
I'm not sure.
No, we didn't.
Do you recognize the writing in the bottom where it says?
Yeah, it says it must apparently that probably went to Rhenish or something because she says
The question was
out of your thing to Robert, July 46. That must be like an inventory of the paintings.
Objection. Move to strike. The answer is non-responsive.
Do you recognize the writing at the bottom of the page?
Robert, yeah.
And what was the question? The Fuhrer to Robert?
It was asked from the thing, she said, I think. What she meant to say was from the report to Robert.
Well, it
She
names
said the thing.
all the paintings.
Just to be clear, that was a characterization of the witness's testimony, not a repetition for purposes of the transcript of what the witness said. The witness spoke one word and counsel characterized it as another.
All I meant was she said thing, but the word is Bericht, which means report. And you can ask your client, Mr. Cooper, to confirm that.
Counsel, just so we're clear, the document speaks for itself, and there's no foundation for the document. There's no basis on which this document can be made a part of the record, and asking the witness whether she recognizes the handwriting is an appropriate question.
Is
and
what?
Is an appropriate question.
That's what I asked.
It's not the testimony, however, that Mrs. Altmann gave, and that's what I was addressing.
You do what you feel is necessary, Mr. Cooper. Let's mark the next exhibit, Exhibit 28. Mrs. Altmann, Exhibit 28, just for the record, is marked 363 and 364. It appears to be a letter from Robert Bentley to his sister Louisa. Mrs. Altmann, when the war ended, where was your sister Louisa?
In Yugoslavia.
Okay. And how long did she remain in Yugoslavia?
I couldn't tell you the exact year. She remained there until she was able to go via Israel to Canada.
Okay. What happened to her husband after the
Her
war?
husband was shot by the communists.
This was after the defeat of the Nazis?
Yeah, they went first through the entire Nazi thing and were able to survive that, and then when the communists came, my brother-in-law, who was an engineer, thought that he could work there and keep the factory going, but they arrested him, and within a few months he was executed.
Now, when your uncle Ferdinand died in November of 1945, you said you found out from Vancouver that he had passed away?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was?
I beg your pardon?
Do you recall when that was? Whoops.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I should know by now how to use it. I just clip it in. Here for you. Or I should learn it by now.
The question was, do you remember when you found out that Ferdinand had died?
Well, I'm sure within a few days. I didn't phone so much in those days. Now it's easier.
And did you learn at that time that you were one of his heirs?
Yeah.
And who told you that?
Either Robert or Louisa. It's only the three of us that were heirs.
Well, where was Louisa in 1945?
She was in Yugoslavia, so it must have been Robert who told me.
And what steps did you then personally take with regard to the estate of your uncle after you learned that he passed away in 1945?
At that time I had 3 small children. No, actually 2. 47 I had 3. And we had very little money, and I learned, I guess, from Robert that he died, and that I was a partial heir.
Okay, but what steps then did you take with regard to the estate?
Nothing. I totally entrusted it to my brother Robert and to Dr. Renish, I suppose.
In 1945, you were 29 years old?
Yeah, I guess so.
And how much older was your brother Robert?
12 years older. Charles was 15 years older.
Okay. So, you mentioned Dr. Renish. Do you recall when you learned that Dr. Renish was involved in handling the estate?
It was a natural thing for me because I didn't even think about it twice. He was a friend of the family. He helped us when we tried to get out, he tried to help us. And I had complete trust in him.
So do you remember when you found out that Dr. Renish was handling the estate of Ferdinand?
Lady.
You mean when?
Yeah.
Well, all during the course I knew that Renish was handling it and was fine with me.
Okay. Did you have any direct communication with Dr. Renish about this?
None. I saw him much later than when I went back for the first time to Austria, but during the time it was only Robert that handled that.
Let me finish the question completely so we have this. Did you have any communication with Dr. Renish about his handling of the estate of your uncle?
Nothing whatsoever.
Okay. And you said you saw him again only when you returned to Austria?
Yeah, but that was much, much later.
When was that?
My daughter was 18 years then, and we visited him in Salzburg.
Did your brother Robert keep you informed of how things were proceeding with the estate of your uncle?
Yes.
About how did he do that? Was it by telephone or letters?
Yeah, partly telephone, partly letters, but I was so busy at that time. I had little children, I worked, and the last thing I had time for was a lot of correspondence.
Counsel, I'm going to continue.
Sure, that's fine.
Going off the record at 12:05 p.m. This is the end of videotape number 1.